Hello, does this work? Okay. So, why would I start off with such a strange drawing? Well, first of all, I'm not a great drawer, but second of all, this signifies what kind of a problem we are facing right now. We are kind of hanging on the side of the cliff, about to fall down, to our problem that we don't even see. So, you would say, who is this kid? He's not even a scientist. Well, not yet at least, but if I can at least convince one person of the problem that we have right now and maybe have them take a few steps to reduce it, I would be pretty happy with my own speech. So, first of all, I want to start off with how I found out about this problem. So, I got to go to an exchange program to the US, and the one semester passed, so I came back. And after 12 hours in the plane, I was exhausted and I just wanted a breath of fresh air when I walked out the airport. But when I took a deep breath, I paused and I thought, did the air always feel like somebody poured a bunch of bleach in my mouth? Well, certainly not, but being in a more fresh environment for a while and then changing it actually got me to realize how bad the situation is right here. After a few minutes of research and searching on the web, I actually came across a statistic where Georgia is ranked #1 in the deaths by pollution. This study is conducted by World Health Organization, and being #1 means that we are even higher than China. You know, in China there are certain cities where you have to wear a gas mask and you can't even see the sky. But their rural population is actually outweighing their statistics and putting them behind us. But that actually means that we did not only mess up the cities, but we actually managed to mess up the rural areas as well. So that would be pretty impressive of its own right if we weren't killing thousands of Georgians every year because of it. So there are three underlying factors for our pollution problem right here. Factories, smoking, and old cars. I will start off with the ones that have the highest magnitude of effects, and I will go down from there. I will suggest a small solution for every single one, and I will summarize it there. So, starting off with old cars. This is actually taking on streets of Tbilisi, and I'm pretty surprised that that thing is not illegal. Okay? We have to pretty much regulate our cars. I will point out a few obvious things right here, so don't think that I'm just spoon-feeding you stuff. So, first of all, the older the car gets, the more fuel it consumes. Therefore, there are more emissions. And the catalyst capacitors are actually reducing pollution rates a lot from the cars. But now there is a very nasty combination in Georgia, where the amount of cars are increasing drastically, while the average age of them is 16 years, and the capacitors are missing. They're either being sold off or they're being imported without ones. Well, now that combination actually accounts for more than 50% of our pollution. And the few solutions to this would be, first of all, to develop our infrastructure better and have our public transport system be, first of all, accessible, second of all, cheap, and third of all, comfortable. Because unless it is comfortable, people are not going to use it. After we get that reform through, we need to start off with finding people who do not have catalyst capacitors installed on their cars and trying to remove some of the very, very, very old cars out of the circulation and recycling them for better purposes. This, of course, would be very tough unless we get the public transport system done first, because people usually freak out about change. And the attempt at right-hand vehicle ban a few years ago in Georgia signified it pretty well, because people were not amused with it. So moving on to the next slide, smoking and secondhand smoking. The image is actually drawn by me, and it kind of signifies how the secondhand smoker usually feels. First of all, I want to mention, I'm pretty surprised that anybody would smoke, considering all the encouraging messages on cigarette boxes like, yo, this kills or this causes cancer. Unless you have a death wish, you would not want to smoke, but this goes even deeper in our culture. So, in the earlier generations, it was very uncool not to smoke. And unless you did, you would never get in with the cool kids. So naturally, people started smoking more and more. And when their kids watched them smoke, they started smoking themselves. And now we have a huge problem with a teenage population smoking. And the teenage population influences other kids who do not want to smoke. But it's considered uncool to ask your friends to just stop smoking or walking out on them if they do that. The few solutions that I would suggest for this, first of all, we have to untangle the cultural problem here. So we have to make smoking uncool again. And we have to make asking people to actually let you breathe clean air cool. And actually, you would think that it's uncool to do that, to like be a buzzkill, but actually making uncool things cool is the coolest thing you can do, in my book. So next, we have to implement laws where we're gonna have the homes of people who still want to smoke around their children safe. We have to implement laws where secondhand smoking of kids can be considered abuse, because actually 1,430 people died due to secondhand smoking issues when they were non-smokers. I call those people being dragged into the early grave by those 8,800 who actually chose to smoke and die that way. Moving on to dirty/dangerous energy types. Coal factories is obviously dirty, we all know that, I don't have to explain it, but we cannot replace them with hydroelectric plants or nuclear plants right now, because Georgia does not have enough to support it, first of all, and second of all, if anything bad happens, they can cause such a huge amount of destruction that it will take at least 20% of our land off just for one nuclear meltdown. And if you thought the flood in Tbilisi a few years ago was bad, you should see a hydroelectric plant like a dam, the big dams just pop. That stuff gets an atheist to pray, I'm not kidding. So I actually went ahead and calculated one of the best solutions that we could have, and if that could be implemented. So solar panels. I took Gigafactory from Tesla, which will be producing 35 gigawatt hours for $5 billion that it will cost to build. And then I divided and multiplied some stuff to account for the Georgian consumption and how much it would cost to build as much as we need over here. So I came down to a number of $446 billion, which would be, if we put it into perspective, 16.9 gates, or 2,971 billion pounds of bananas. Okay, so moving on. How would we go about personally doing something about this, and what did I do myself? So first of all, I want to mention again, don't be afraid to be uncool or a buzzkill. If your friends do not want to consider your health, just go out. They're not your friends. They don't want to be your friends, because when there are 1,000 people dying from that cause, it's a serious thing, and unless people consider that, I would not consider them my friends. And that's what I do personally. I always ask them to stop. I'm like always watching, and generally I try to be vigilant about this stuff. Next, you can try to consume less energy. You know, if you're not using the light or it's morning, you can just switch it off. It's not very hard. And generally, you can use the public transport system when the new one is developed. Right now, I understand everybody not using our current transport system. Even I don't do that because it's kind of not well developed for now. But when it is, we should all do, and we should all use them. So, you would now think that most of my solutions are based around government policies. But actually, that would be wrong. Every solution starts off with an individual. So, if you take away one thing from my speech, remember that when we change an individual, we can change a family. When we can change a family, we can change a society. And when we can change societies, we can change cities. When we can change cities, we can change the countries. And when the countries change, then the world changes with it. So remember that it all starts with an individual, and remember, if we want to make a better world for all of us, then we have to start off with ourselves. Thank you.